Happy New Year!
Hey Elaine,
Hootenanny!
what's your favourite New Year tradition?
I like making a resolution. I feel there's either a joke or this is some kind of wind up that I don't understand. I've gone into giving you the full answer because I've taken your question literally, but I feel there's something behind this.
Never change. My favourite New Year's tradition, thanks for asking, is explaining to you how we do the format of these and how we do them.
Yes.
Every year.
Every single year. Good. Do you want to carry on then?
Can you remember how we do these? This is our best films of the year, which most people will know because they saw it when they clicked on it, but yeah.
I do remember that we go 10 to 1.
Orthodox, yeah.
Yep. And that you...
Imagine if we started at 1.
I would. I'd be like, right, let's start at 1 and work our way down. And that a person gives their answer, and if the other person has it on their list, we wait until we get to that point.
Well done. It's
There we
only
go.
taken, what is it, 5 of these
It's
we've done now?
5 years.
Yes.
We're about 5 years.
Let's see if you remember it next year.
Excellent.
Let's see if you remember it when we record our best TV of the year in a couple of days.
Who knows what is to come? I will try my best.
So, best films of the year.
Yep.
Before we start, how do you think the quality of films this year has been?
Is this another trick question?
Well, I know that you've been frantically watching things to get 10 that you actually liked.
Yeah, I've not had the greatest year in terms of going to the pictures. I think it's been one of those years where I've been quite busy doing other things, and I've prioritised those other things over going to the cinema, and I've found it quite difficult. I found it quite difficult to not necessarily find the time, because I think that's I know I can find the time. You are very good at sort of saying, why don't you go to the cinema, and doing all of that and accommodating.
And you love to throw that generous offer in my face and go, no, I'm not doing that.
I'm not doing it. It's more that I've wanted to do other things, and the cinema, often I find the times are difficult, but also it just goes on so long. Like, things are just so long, and that puts me off. So I haven't seen as many films as I would like to. There's been loads of films I've gone, I'm definitely going to go and see that. I really wanted to go and see Wicked, for example, part 1 of Wicked, and I just haven't got round to doing it. And the big thing that puts me off is the fact that it's 1 billion years long and it's only part 1, and it's coming out on streaming. Like, I don't know whether it's out today. There's been like a countdown on our Skybox saying 3 more days. I don't know whether 3 days have passed now. So I know I can watch it on TV. So yes, my list is very much going to be not the best films of the year, but my favourite films out of all the films that I have seen.
I look forward to having... Oh, God.
What?
It's the Elaine... it's the Elaine... justification of her list before.
Yes.
It's just the 10 favourite films you've seen, huh? I mean, I'm going to do very similar wording around my TV.
But you have seen, you're really, really good at going to the cinema. You've got a really good...
Thank you.
No, but you are. You've got a really good way of just I'm just going to go. You don't put up all the barriers that I do, and you go and you accommodate it around all of like our childcare and everything. So you will go after our child's gone to bed, and all of those things. You think about it, but you also go for it. So you're very good at just going, I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
It's not bothering anyone. Everything's done, and I'm gonna go. Whereas I am more likely to stay at home and watch something on the telly than drive off to the cinema and do that sort of thing. And also, I think I feel very bad saying this because I thought I was one, but I clearly am not. You are much more of a cinephile than I am. You watch things that I will turn my nose up at, or I will just be pretty rude about, quite frankly.
I don't think that's necessarily the mark of a cinephile.
No, I think you're very...
You watch things I wouldn't like.
You are much more open to watching things, is what I'm saying. So you'll watch comedy, you'll watch indies, you're much more open to watching things, whereas I am very restrictive in my patterns of thought.
Yes. Yeah.
So your list is always really interesting because you've taken on board what other people have said, throughout the year. you take on board what other people have said they really liked, and you will often direct me to films that I haven't heard of. And actually, there's a couple of them on my list that you've told me about. So yeah, it works.
Yeah, I was lying in bed at 5 o'clock this morning, waiting for our son to wake up, listening to the Filmcast review of the year, noting down the films I hadn't seen so that I can go and catch up on them. I've just noticed the Cinemal, if you're listening, have released their top 5 of the year they normally do. I will be adding those films that I haven't seen to a spreadsheet to catch up on them. So
Yeah, cinephile then.
yeah, or just geek, I think is
Yeah.
yeah.
Great big filmy nerd.
Should we get going?
Let's do it.
I'll let you go first.
Oh, thank you. Well, in at number 10, I don't think this will be on your list, but it's something that we watched together on I'm going to say a Friday night. It felt like a Friday night, and it was over Christmas, and it's the new Taron Egerton film that was released on Netflix called Carry On.
It's not on my list. I am excited to talk about it.
I loved this film. It feels like a throwback. I was trying to explain it to our friends the other day. It feels like a throwback to sort of those 90s actioners. But when you're watching it, it's yes, it's tropey in a way, but it's not tropey in a way that like you're rolling your eyes all the time. So things are happening and you're thinking, oh, we could try this, oh, we could try that. And actually, within the film, within the plot, he then goes and tries it and it doesn't work. It's a really, really fun Friday night film where, premise, Taron Egerton's working in an airport. There's a baddie who wants to get something on an aeroplane, and the baddie is instructing Taron. I can't tell you his name. Instructing Taron through a little earpiece.
Ethan Kopech.
Really, I would never have got that in a million
I've got it in
years.
front of me now, so
Never
yeah.
have got. But he's instructing him through a little earpiece, and Ethan has to do what this person is saying.
Yeah.
Otherwise, bad things will happen.
Yeah, it goes back to a different time when these films were kind of like staples in the cinema. It reminds me of a little bit of the thing that's been compared to is the Die Hard films, but there's also like disaster films like Air Force One, for example.
Yeah.
See previous podcasts that we've done together. It had a real feeling of phone booth to me, which is a film I'd really enjoy and haven't seen in ages. But yeah, I think it had a really, really fun action sequence, which was one that was unlike anything I'd seen, like one of my favourite action sequences of the year. It also had some really clunky exposition
totally.
and things like that. But you know what you're going into in it, and I'm along for the ride.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. In the sort of the along for the ride note was that I really went with it. I wasn't feeling bored at any point. I was intrigued by the villain. I thought it wasn't just this not three-dimensional. It wasn't just a one-dimensional villain.
Yeah.
It had a modern twist to it. I just really, really love it, and I've been going around telling everyone, have you seen this film? Have you seen it? It's not gonna light up award ceremonies or do anything like that. It's probably not gonna appear on many people's lists, I wouldn't imagine. But for me, as someone who hasn't seen that many films this year, it stayed with me, and I'm recommending it to everyone, and so it comes in at number 10.
Okay. My number 10, this is one where I've got to look at you and see if you give me a nod that we move on. My number 10 is Civil War.
I haven't seen Civil War, so it's not going to appear on my list.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm sure you saw it.
I wanted to see it, and I didn't get around to it, and I was a little bit scared, and maybe you could talk to this.
Yes.
I was a little bit scared that it would be so true to life and so resonant with everything that was going on in the world that I would find it really depressing. So I think I pulled away from it a little bit. I'm scared to watch it.
Okay. So I don't think it's the film that it was made out to be in the marketing of this film. This was made out to be a very aggressive president who is declared war on states that don't recognise him as president. And that is the by and by. This is about the art of war journalism and war photography. And I didn't realise that going in, but it absolutely won me over. I think it killed the film for a lot of people, and I heard a lot of criticism based on, I think, based around expectations, and I can understand that. When if you're going into something and it absolutely wrong foots you, then I can understand what if it's not quite what you got yourself geared up for. I love this film. I walked out of the cinema, and so if you know Newcastle, and some people who are listening will, in the centre of town, there is just near a shopping centre, there is a place where there is like often a police van parked in the middle of the road, like in a traffic island in the middle. And that really freaked me out because there was this police van in the middle of the road when I was walking back to the metro station or walking back to where I parked the car, wherever I got there. And it really, really freaked me out. And that moodiness, the kind of atmosphere around it just really, really got to me. I mean, it's excellent cast of Kirsten Dunst, Wagner Moura, Stephen McKinley Henderson, and what a 12 months it's been for Kaylee Spaney, who was in Priscilla, which is a film wasn't massively a fan of, but then she's been in this and Alien Romulus. So
which we may come back to.
Okay. What's your number 9?
My number 9 is Beetlejuice. I take it that's not on your list.
If I'd have made 10 lists, it might not have been on there. No, that's a lie. I enjoyed it for what it was. I think when we reviewed it, I went into more of a rant about the cinema I saw it in rather than the actual thing.
You did, and also the song as well that plays throughout the film.
Yeah.
That you really, really had a bit of a go at MacArthur Park, or their styling of MacArthur Park and how they used it.
Yeah.
Turns out to be one of your mum's favourite songs, which I was very excited about. Afterwards, because I then played it over and over again and had Richard Harris in my ears for months on end. I love it for the soundtrack. I'm going to declare a bit of a bias in that I listen to the soundtrack.
It's a shame they've missed putting that quote on the poster, isn't it?
Not the film, just love it for the soundtrack. But I play the soundtrack over and over again, and in my sort of my Spotify Unwrapped, a lot of the songs from Beetlejuice came like fairly near the top.
Yeah.
Just random tracks as well. There's some like little indie songs, and I really loved seeing Winona Ryder. I like the nostalgia of it, but the thing that really makes me think about it now, when I think about that film, I'm taken to Jenna Ortega's character and the storyline that she has, that relationship with her mother, moving somewhere else, or a mum getting married, all of those things that sort of hit you when you're a teenager, or can hit you when you're a teenager, and then looking for love and romance. It just really reminded me of all those things. I thought it was very authentically done, and I really liked it. The plotting was probably, as your face tells me, all over the place. I think I can see in your face that you want to talk to me about various things or shout out various things about that plotting. But I enjoyed it, so much so that I bought it on DVD for one of our friends for Christmas.
Yeah, listen to Elaine's review of this rather than mine. I think it was fine. I think it was better than I anticipated it to be, which is another quote for the poster. It was the Lego sequel, wasn't it? That's the Lego sequel, the movie.
I went with it, and I think that's why it...
Coffee was nice once I found the cinema there.
Yes, all right, Mark. What was your number 9?
My number 9 is Perfect Days.
I have not heard of this. Look at the blank.
Never mind seen it. You've not even heard of it. This is the latest film by Wim Wenders.
Again, you're going to have to explain.
Okay, it did Paris, Texas.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the only film of his I've seen. He's a very successful director. This is the story of Hirayami, who is a Tokyo toilet cleaner. That is basically the beginning and end of the plot. It is someone going about their life, taking loads of pride in their work, and just enjoying the scenery around him. And it is 2 hours of that. I know that does not sound like your cup of tea.
Nope.
It is absolutely beautiful. It starred Koji Yakusho, who is I've previously seen in like 13 Assassins and Babel. So he's a successful Japanese actor. But he just goes around his work, just interacting with the people around him, interacting with people who he wanting to use these toilets. He's got a life. He's got this. He likes to listen to music and listen to tapes, and takes real care in the tapes that he owns and the vintage music that he's got. He takes photographs of trees and things like that. And I don't know why this works, because as I'm saying this, I am seeing your face, and that was exactly what I thought as well. But this is so beautiful, and I can only describe how this affected me. So some years ago, again, I'm going to describe Newcastle, so where we live, but there is a park that's just outside the city centre that's in a valley. We went there very early on our first date, and then about 50 foot above it, at the top of the valley, is a second park, which I'd heard loads of people talking about, and I went to find one day. So it's called Paddy Freeman's Park, and I must have been a Saturday when I went, but I was walking around it, and the park run had been on that morning. And so there was like chalk lines where the park run had started. And I walked around, and then just as I was walking around the path, there was someone who chalked in a line, an arrow pointing to the left and saying, "Look left." And there was this amazing view over Jesmond Dean, which is the other park lower down, where you can just see the Vale and some waterfall. It's absolutely stunning. This film is so good, it made me go back and find that find that park. It is a work of beauty, and I just went and walked up there. I went to the cinema, but parked in town, walked to Jesmond Dean, walked to Paddy Freeman's Park, looked at that view, took a photo, and then walked to the cinema.
Wow.
And then got caught in the rain and had to shelter in a Brewdog and had a pizza.
Oh, that's not a bad thing. Oh, look, you had to have a pizza and have a drink. All right, okay.
Yeah, this really affected me, and any film that affects me that much, absolutely deserves to be on this list.
Yeah.
I think you might find something in there.
It sounds
there
like
is narrative around how he interacts with his co-workers, and co-workers who are kind of half-assing a job and see it as a kind of a really demeaning job, but he takes so much pride in it. Also, public toilets in Tokyo look amazing. There's somewhere the glass gets like, it's see-through, and then you lock it and it goes
not sure about
opaque.
That. Right.
Yeah. Danger. Carry on.
Okay, so my number 8 is Deadpool and Wolverine.
That's not on my list.
It's
so.
not on your
No,
list?
it's not. It's not.
It's unusual for a superhero film to not be.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what now. Madam Web isn't on this either.
Yeah.
And I'm not seeing Kraven the Hunter, but that's not on my list either.
And typically, this wouldn't be on my list either. I'm not into the lore. I'm not part of the fandom. I will watch superhero, Marvel, DC films. I'm much more into I really like Batman, and I have more of an affinity with Batman. But like the Marvel films in particular, I've just really not got along with. I watch them and then I forget about them. And so I went to Deadpool and Wolverine with more of a let's just see what everyone's going on about. My screening was quite quiet, and I went to a screening where it's essentially 360. It's all round you. Is that what they
Screen
call
X?
it? Screen X, yeah. Where it's very immersive, and I do wonder whether that's had an impact on my memories of the film and also my experience of the film, because I find that very impactful for me.
Okay.
But I just really loved the here's one for the poster as well. I really love the ultra violence, so I do like an ultra violent film, especially when it's cartoon violence.
I think they absolutely would put that on the poster.
Yeah. I thought it was funny, and I don't really find much funny. So that it was humorous, which I didn't anticipate. I like the relationship between Deadpool and Wolverine. I like seeing Hugh Jackman back in the Wolverine character, but playing it differently. The plot, take it or leave it, but there were things in it. There were cameos, there were references, there was nostalgia that I really, really liked. So I'm surprised, but it is on my list this year.
My number 8 is The Wild Robot.
Again, you'll have to remind me. I really hope this doesn't happen for the rest of the list. I'm sure we'll get some blockbusters at some point in time, Mark.
So, I mean, this is a big animated film.
I'm sure it is.
It's directed by Chris Sanders, who did How to Train Your Dragon and Lilo and Stitch, and it's based on a story by Peter Brown. This is an animated film, as I say, which looks at a housekeeping robot that's stranded on an island that is, due to a crash, is only inhabited by animals. And as it's trying to set up its world and understand what's going on, it accidentally kills a goose, leaving a baby goose orphaned. So it looks after the goose and goes through it.
Too right, it should.
So this this is one of the films where I really struggled to put the voice performances with who they were. So, I mean, there's Lupita Nyong'o, there's Pedro Pascal, there's Bill Nighy. The only person who I did recognise was Matt Berry, because he speaks like Matt Berry. Yeah. This film looks amazing. It's in that same sort of painted aesthetic as the Spider-Verse films and Puss in Boots. But I think the film hits really hard on me. I don't expect this will be on many other people's top 10 of the year, because as a father of a child with complex needs, this hit all the buttons. The goose that's looked after is what would be called the runt of the litter, so therefore struggles to do things. And I did not think I'd be ugly crying in the cinema at a montage of a goose learning to fly. But God knows this film did it. This goes places I'm not entirely sure it needed to. I got to the end of the second act and I was like, we're a bit early, aren't we? I think there's another half hour on this. And there is another half hour which comes in, and it's a third act, which, if it had just left it at the conclusion at the end of the second act, I'd probably been happier. But then it wouldn't be a film because it would be less than an hour long. I have heard criticisms of this film. I just want to make it mentioned. The robot is coded as female, and it devotes itself to looking after this child. And I've heard people criticise it for many different reasons, but around how it indicates that a woman's sole prime purpose is to look after a child, and very outdated views and things like that. It didn't hit like that with me, but I could understand it just to stave off everyone when you go and see it and go, this is a sexist film. But no, it's an absolutely beautiful piece of work, and it really, really affected me in a way that not many films do. And also made me have to get out of a cinema really quickly so people didn't see me ugly tears, like puffy eyes coming out at the end of it. Your number 7.
My number 7 is Alien Romulus. Not on your list.
Come on. No,
Different
it's
list
not
this
on my
year.
list. No.
So latest in the Alien franchise, I will put my hands up. I love all the Alien films. I mean, I've even got a soft spot for like the Alien versus Predator. That
that was my next question.
Yeah, I know. I just really like, and I really like all I love wild sequels as well. I like sequels that go off on a bit of a tangent. The thing that I liked most about Alien Romulus is the beginning of it, actually. The beginning, when you're on a new planet, when you're meeting new characters, and the world building around Kaylee Spaney, her character, and David Johnson's Andy. See, I remember his name. I can't remember Kaylee Spaney's character's name, but I remember his. David Johnson's Andy, and when they're on this planet, and are they going to get off it? And then they've got this sort of ramshackle bunch of friends, and what's going on there, and will they ever be able to leave? All of those things, that world building, I thought was absolutely fantastic. The thing that I will come back to, and the thing that makes me go, oh, why did you have to do that, is there are too many nods to some of the more iconic films. And we're not just talking subtle nods, we're talking dialogue that people would not have a clue existed, and there's no reason for them to be using that dialogue. If it was...
It's crowbarred in
it is. And it almost feels like it's been edited, and they've gone back and they've done a reshoot and they've put it in, and it makes me sad, because I think it would have got up higher, because the reason it's so low is because of those things. It just couldn't help itself, and I think it needed more subtlety, because it's a horror. You are sitting there in the cinema going, all the xenomorphs and the face huggers, and it's got some brilliant action sequences. It's got in Andy, in David Johnson's character, you've got someone who you don't know if you can trust them. You don't know who that he's playing. Two different people essentially in this film, and it's phenomenal. but I just wish it had had the courage of its convictions to do something new and not. I mean, I think you can have nostalgia. Of course, you're going to have nods because you've got the aliens are still the aliens from before. But why bring back, legacy characters? Why bring back legacy dialogue? You don't have to do that. You can find your own way. But I really enjoyed it.
It's my favourite alien film since Aliens, and I think that's not necessarily damning with faint praise. I think it's better than Prometheus. It's better than Alien.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Covenant.
There we go. Covenant. Yeah. I think it's an absolute star-making performance from David Johnson, just picking up from a film that was on my last year's Rye Lane, on my last year's list. It's Kaylee Spaney again. Brilliant character, brilliant badass female character.
Yeah.
Strong and independent,
but without replicating Ripley, which I thought was very interesting.
I bet they thought they were so fucking clever putting that line in there.
Yeah,
and,
that's it.
Yeah, and it absolutely took me out of the film.
Totally. Your number 7.
My number 7 is Heretic.
Oh, yay. A film
One you've
I've
heard of. Yeah, but not seen.
Also Hugh Grant.
Yeah.
And also Religion.
It's directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods, who... Did you ever see 65?
No. Yes, I did. It was awful. It was the one with
Adam Driver.
That's it. I just said Adam Scott, but I'm thinking about Severance.
Yeah,
the one with I did. I saw and I was so disappointed. But coming back to form then.
Yes, yeah. Largely a three-hander, this film. It's Hugh Grant, it's Sophie Thatcher, and it's Chloe East. It's two girls from the Church of the Latter-day Saints. Is that? Yeah. Sorry, just looking at Elaine for confirmation there.
Religious confirmation. The Mormon church.
Yeah, I didn't know if we necessarily use that term anymore.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
Mormonism.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. So they visit a house of a potential convert who seemingly wants to discuss the relevance of modern religion in a modern society. He challenges their views. He challenges the view of the Mormon church. He challenges the view of the Christian church. All major religions get a good going over in this. And I was sat there in the first 2 acts of this going, I know that something dark is coming, and I know that Hugh Grant's a baddie in this, but I'm agreeing with a lot of what he says. It's like that Onion article, like the worst person on the internet just made a point you agree with. And then the third act happens, and it does turn darker. And I know people, I spoke to friend of the show, Neil. Hello, Neil. Who said that absolutely didn't work for him, the third act. Me, I think I was so far gone that I was happy just to go along with the film at that point. And like I said, it's my 7th best film of the year.
Yeah.
It's a lovely film of just 3 people talking to each other. And weirdly, Topher Grace in a very small role, which I didn't recognise.
Interesting.
What's your number 6?
My number 6 is Dune Part 2.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
No. I remember when we review the Dune film, or when we have reviewed the Dune films, that we end up talking about all of the names and the fact that I really like
Paul,
sort of Gurney Hassett or whatever. See, I don't even know if I've got that right. But all of the Arrakis and all of that sort of stuff, and
then Paul
Atreides. Is it Gurney Hallett? See, I'm going to rethink of that now. Anyway, I like it. I think it's big and it's brash and it's sandy and it's got all the religious, the allegories, and it really reminds me of when I was younger. I used to love watching those really big, like Christian films. They weren't they? Sort of like the Last Testament or I can't remember that.
Ben-Hur.
Yes, thank you. Spartacus. Those sorts. Yeah, thank you, love. I used to love watching those. Anything with a bit of Charlton Heston in. He seemed to be in a lot of them. Like things about Moses, and because they were big and they were bold and they were in the desert. And this is what it reminds me of. Obviously, it's pulling on a lot of that religious heritage. And I just go along with it. I find it, the space nuns, the Rebecca Ferguson going a bit wild. I like it, and it's when I came out of June, and when I came out of June Part 2, I just felt like I'd seen a spectacle. I'd seen cinema.
And I totally agree with you. This isn't my sort of film. Big, epic sci-fi is not my thing. And I respect it. I think it's a really well-made film, but I enjoyed it. Like, I've got, I enjoyed it. Mark Gregerson, The Honeymoon Period.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be on my top 10 of the year for those reasons. It's just not made for me.
What are we up to? It's 6.
That's your 6.
That's my 6.
That's your 6.
Have you done
just
6? You haven't done 6.
No. But I don't think I'm going to do mine 6 for very long because I suspect this is higher up your list.
We might get one.
No, my number 6 is It's What's Inside.
Yes, I will be coming back to that.
Okay. What's your 5?
My number 5 is The Iron Claw.
Not on my list.
Yeah, I think you knew, because obviously this is a film about wrestling and a family group who were involved in wrestling. What are their names again?
The Von Erichs.
Thank you, the Von Erichs. Sort of the father and then the brothers, the sons, and this tragic story of what happens when you put your family in a wrestling ring. And the sort of the personal and professional tragedies that befall you, particularly where you're trying to make money and also you're competing against each other as well as other people. I found it completely compelling because I didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah,
I think you knew so much about it that you weren't going in like I was thinking, wow, like who is this and who's that, and trying to work it out in your head. And like I had to work out who all the brothers were. You knew that there was another brother that wasn't even involved in the film, and you knew exactly how it was going to end. Yeah. Whereas when tragedy struck, I didn't know that was. I mean, I could guess from the way that the film was driving towards it, but I didn't know for sure what was going to happen to each person. And even at the end, I was thinking, right, is this, for example, is a particular character going to survive? Or are they going to still be here at the end of the film? You know that because you know the history. Am I right in thinking that's where sort of your reservations lay with it?
No, I don't have many reservations. I just think I think there's better tellings of this story in a documentary format. I don't think it needs the glitz and the glam that this film gives. I have some quite specific reservations about how things are depicted. I think there's a scene there that offends me on pretty much every level.
Okay.
As just a person.
And is that one of the scenes at the end?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I was really, really quite put off by one of the scenes.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah.
I think it's quite poor taste to cut someone out of this because it would be too much tragedy. I mean, like the life of the Von Erich brother that was cut out, is just forgotten.
Yeah.
Because it's too close to Mike's story.
Yeah.
I think it's done. I think it's really well acted. I think Zac Efron's brilliant. I think Jeremy Allen White's brilliant. I think Holt McCallany is McCallany, yeah,
as the father.
Yeah, is the father. It's probably a little too method based on some of the interviews I've seen. I think Fritz Von Erich is one of the most horrible people I've ever in a horrible business of wrestling.
Yeah.
I've seen him defend it, but if that's what you need to do to get into the role, that's fine. I'm glad that it got people looking at wrestling. I like it for that reason, but I enjoyed the film. I just the reason why I don't like it. Yeah, it's a fine film, and I'm glad that you got a lot out of it, and I'm glad that other people got a lot out of it and understood my fascination for the business that is wrestling.
I haven't seen it on other people's lists, which I think is a shame. I understand your reservations. I think there is you can have a conversation about what happens at the end and the way things are depicted, and some I can see exactly, and I did have a feeling of okay, that's interesting, but it didn't do enough to sort of take away the rest of the film for me. And I'm glad that the film is there to tell people about this story, or at least open their eyes to this story. And I remember, you're talking about you being in the cinema and remembering that cinema experience. I was in a very, very small screen, like one of those really tiny ones where there's only like, you know,
Three rows,
and,
yeah.
and I was right at the front, and I think I was just mesmerised by it, you know, the entire time. And actually I was off to the side as well, so I wasn't getting a brilliant view because it was a curvy thing, but I was mesmerised, and the cinema was silent. And I came away and I read all about the Von Erichs, you know, for the rest of the evening.
I think part of the reason it's not on people's lists is because in America and Canada it came out last year.
Yes, of
So
course.
it was probably on
yes.
last year's list.
Yeah. You're gonna have to remind me again because I'm stuck. Here I am being stuck. I'm stuck at what we're doing because of the thing that I said earlier, because you said it's what's inside and I said, oh, we'll be coming back to that. And so where are we?
So you've just done your number 5 film.
I have.
I'm going to do my number 5 film.
Excellent. I've made it too complicated. Carry
yes,
on.
You have. My number 5 film is Blink Twice.
Oh, right. Okay. Another sort of horror.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. This is a film I went into knowing absolutely nothing aside from Gina Davis and Cal MacLachlan were in it, which they both got pretty small parts. So I don't know how I picked up on. They were top of when I was looking at some listing.
Yeah, I didn't know that at all.
Stars Naomi Ackie, Channing Tatum, Alia Shawkat, Christian Slater. And this is a film about a waitress who gets invited to a multimillionaire's private island after an awards ceremony. The film reveals itself really slowly, and for me, I think the joy that I got out of it was knowing absolutely nothing on it. And it's so much more satisfying for the process. But it talks about the power of the super rich. It talks about how we're influenced by people we see online. It talks about online cancellations and the subsequent apology videos that people post. So this feels super relevant, and especially for this time now. And I wonder how it's going to feel in 10 years' time when, fingers crossed, the world's moved on too. But I sat there absolutely mesmerised by this film, and then the credits rolled, and I was like, directed by Zoe Kravitz. Such a good film. You know, in any other year, this would probably be in my top 1 or 2 of the year, but there are 4 films that I probably think sneak above it. But yeah, such a great film. You've not seen it yet, have you?
I've not, no.
It can't. This film gained notoriety because there was a trigger warning placed in front of the film after the BBFC card, I believe, which gave me some clue of what was coming up. And if I hadn't, then this really would have hit me harder. There is trigger warnings for certain things in this film. I think they were done tastefully and to show the plot. They weren't lingered on. They weren't done exploitatively. And I think it was done very well, which was the first thing that made me think this is probably a woman director, because it was done very, very sensitively. But if you are in a position where you may be triggered by something, I'd recommend to check it out before you see this film. But yeah, I love this film, so I definitely want to watch it again.
My number 4 is It's What's Inside.
Hey!
Yay, we get to talk about it now. And you got me onto this because you said in an earlier episode that it was just a brilliant film, and you gave a really, really brief overview of the premise in that someone's getting married, group of friends get together in a house the night before the wedding, and they have also invited someone from university college years that they haven't seen for a long time, who has this sort of this mystery around them and didn't quite know if they were going to turn up. He does turn up. It's that sort of dark, rainy night, knock at the door. He turns up, and he turns up with a suitcase, and then the plot unfolds. And you stopped there and you said, I'm not going to go any further. And that was a brilliant idea, because that's all I knew going in to watch this film. And I just put it on because I had an afternoon to myself, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to put this on and I'll just see. And I'll probably not even watch it with great intent. I might just have my laptop open as well. I mean, laptop went away within seconds. This grabs you from the beginning. And if you are a fan, as I am, of groups of friends getting together, each with their own past, but also with relationships with each other. When you reach a certain age, don't you? Yeah. You get to a certain age, like we are now, where you have a friendship group where there is history in that group.
Yes.
And there's history between individuals, but there's history between partnerships and relationships, and there's things going all the way back to university or even all the way back to school.
Yeah.
And you've known each other for like, even like one of my best friends, I've known them now for like over 20 years. I've known someone else for even longer. But, you know, you think back and you think, wow, we went through all of our 20s together. We lived together in our 20s. We've had all of this, and then put those people together in a highly charged situation of someone's getting married, and then you throw this plot device right into, I mean, it and I mean it by throw it in, and then the film just takes you to places where your mind is on fire, but in a really good way, in a trying to work things out, really keeping up with it, but also thinking, this is so clever. I absolutely loved it, and I've been recommending it to anyone who'll listen.
I mean, I totally agree. I think it's, as I said when I reviewed it on the podcast, I think it's one of those films that would be a really good Twilight Zone episode. And the problem with those Twilight Zone episode-esque films is that quite often you get to an hour and you tap and you watch and thinking, oh, yeah, it impressed me. But the thing that this does so well is, or one of the things that this does so well, is that it keeps on reinventing itself and adding an extra thing, which makes you think, oh shit, right, no, now I've got my head around this. This is a really complex structure in that you need to get to know who these people are straight away, and then move on to the next part of the story, and then you need to understand who they are again for reasons that we and you need to understand all of that backstory between them as well, because that's part of what happens. Such clever storytelling mechanisms in this as well, in the way that they reveal things about a person in a way that's foreshadowed and set up in the story. I think this is so clever. I'll say now, it's feature debut of Greg Jardine. I am so excited to see what else he does. The cast is so well acting.
Yeah, and to a point where I was looking them up thinking I must know these people from somewhere else, and actually I didn't really know them from other things.
No, I mean, I can go through them, read them one by one. You know, Brittany O'Grady is probably the most famous of them, but even then, she's not someone I've ever seen in a film before.
Yeah.
Such a great cast from top to bottom, especially when you understand what they have to do.
Yes.
If you've seen the film, you'll understand. Yeah. If you've not seen the film,
just go
see the film. It's on Netflix.
It's honestly brilliant.
It's such a shame that this has been put on Netflix where it's just been released and not picked up much traction, because I feel this could be such a hit. I've been going out to bat for this film, and I've been telling everyone, you need to see this film, and I think there's only probably you that's actually seen it that told me. But yeah, love this film. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, loved it.
Is that your number 4?
That was my number 4. Do I have to do number 3 now?
No.
Do you have to do number 4?
You might have to. I don't know if you've seen this or not. It's just my number 4 is The Zone of Interest.
No,
okay.
Not on my list.
Have you seen it?
I have.
Yeah.
I think it's a phenomenal film. Yeah. I think it's a phenomenal film. I was so traumatized by it. I haven't been able to put it on my list, and I know that's a cop-out because it is a fabulous film, obviously.
Yes.
I just couldn't. I was looking at it as like my favourite films of the year, and I cannot possibly put it as my favourite film of the year. I found it very, very traumatic to watch.
I understand. It's like I said. I think it's in any other year. This could very well be number 1. It's such well done. Written by Jonathan Glazer, who did Under the Skin, did Sexy Beast back in the day. Do you know what else he did?
No.
Did the video to Virtual Insanity.
Really?
Which, to this day, I've tried to explain to my mum how they did it. The Jamiroquai video for Virtual Insanity, if anyone's not up on 90s funk pop.
Funk pop.
Put it on YouTube and see. It's a really good video.
Yeah, it's great.
My mum just will not understand how they did the video. I've explained it. I've got little props out and said, look, this is where the walls are. This is where the camera is. And that moves. But yeah, So for those people who aren't aware of this, this is about a middle class family who are just trying to get on in their life, but just so happen that the husband is the commandant of Auschwitz or a concentration
They're
camp. I don't know if it's
Nazis.
yeah.
And you're saying they're a middle class, we're just trying to get on with it, but they're very clearly
Yes.
Nazis.
Yes, they are. You don't see inside the camps. They live just on the outside of it, but you hear and I think this is what makes it more, in many ways, make it more traumatic. Is you hear things in the background, you see things in the skyline, and you know what's going on, but these people are almost oblivious to it, and it's become normal everyday life to them.
Yeah, because they don't care.
Yes.
Mark.
Yeah. This film is so restrained. In worse hands, this could be the film that I think we've seen about such camp, and that's fine in itself. But I think this shows the horrors in so much more vivid ways by the people on the outside. So beautifully executed. I'll shout out Sandra Hüller, who's the only person in the cast that I think I've seen who was in Anatomy of a Fall, and Tony Erdmann. But yeah, scenes that absolutely stay with you. You look shocked. Just
no. I don't even like. My brain's going back to remember scenes from the film, and it makes me feel really quite unwell, to be honest with you. There were, and I think the power of the film, if we can use that terminology, and I find it really difficult to talk about this film. The power of the film is that you are not seeing the inside of the concentration camp. We're seeing it all from the outside, but we are seeing what is happening. We are hearing what is happening, and we are seeing what is left of people, and the horrors of what is occurring, but also the horror of the people who are, Sandra Hüller's character, the wife, the mother in this, is going through people's clothing, people who are in the camps, and doling them out to her friends with glee, with like, well, this person must have been very thick. And so they know absolutely what is happening next door.
But it's been normalised. And I think that's the thing. It's just become part of everyday life for whatever reason. It's an amazing piece of work. I think it's on Amazon Prime. You have to be in the mood to watch this.
I'm not sure there is a mood, because I thought I would be I thought I was prepared. But it's horrifying.
Anyways, now that I've moved really lowered the mood in here, what's your number 3?
So my number 3 is The First Omen. So staying with horror, slightly different, but staying with horror. The First Omen is a prequel to The Omen, funnily enough. And I really like the film The Omen. I think it's really good, 1970s horror. I like the simpleness of the premise, which is in The Omen, a child is born. He comes into the care of a wealthy family who is near to government, the US government, and it turns out he's the son of Satan. He's treble six. It's Damien, and it's very high camp at times, The Omen, but it's also horrifying. I wasn't massively keen, like in my own mind. I wasn't thinking I really needed to go back and see a prequel, but other film podcasts and film magazines were sort of writing about it and saying, actually, this is really quite good. So I thought, you know what? It was on, it had come on streaming by that point in time. I'll stick it on, and I'll probably turn it off in about half an hour because it'll be terrible. Anyway, it's in my top 10. It's really so well done. It's got a beautiful 70s feel to it. The just from the off, you feel like you're back in that world, and the characterization, the acting, it's not high camp, it's powerful and dark, and it has modern contemporary themes running through it around birth and women and gender, which I really appreciated. And I think we're getting a lot of films like that because of what we're seeing in terms of women's reproductive rights, and it is not a coincidence, I think, that we're seeing, films like Immaculate, films like the First Omen coming out very close to each other, which are talking around birth and pregnancy. There is a scene in The First Omen where someone there's a birth scene. Now, I, as someone who has had a traumatic birth experience and has had a child die, stick away from birth scenes as much as I can. I stick away from pregnancy, I stick away from birth scenes. And when this first happened, when this scene first occurred, I did think to myself, oh, this might be one I fast forward through. But the scene itself is so powerful and so, like, the acting is just phenomenal. It's a combination of horror and delight and animalism, and I've never seen such a representation, and it's not it's heightened and it's in a horror film, but I've not seen a representation of the horror and the pleasure of birth in one. It's just phenomenal. And even I, with all of my baggage, I've watched that scene a couple of times because it represents to me the rage and the anger and the lack of control, but also the brain, and the joy, and just all of those things is wrapped up in this one scene. And my understanding is that the actress Nell Tiger Free, I think her name is.
That's right.
Yeah. I think she did it in 2 takes, and
Christ.
I mean, that I think should just be her. When she goes for films, when she's like auditioning, she should just show people that, and they'll put her in every film.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this. I don't have the emotional connection to The Omen that you have. I saw The Omen about a week before I saw this film, so yeah, that kind of indicates where I am with that. I think it's fine. I think Immaculate, if Immaculate's not on my list, but I think I preferred Immaculate. It would probably be in my top maybe 25 of the year. I think it's a better film for me, and with a better performance from Sydney Sweeney than as much as I enjoyed Nell Tiger Free's performance in that.
And what is your number 3?
My number 3 is Anora.
Oh yeah, I can understand why that's on your list. You were only talking about this recently on the pod.
Yes, yeah. The latest film from Sean Baker, who's done Red Rocket, Tangerine, The Florida Project. It's a story of a young woman who's working in a strip club. One of her clients is a young Russian with lots of money who offers to pay her to accompany him for a week while he's in the country. As it turns out, his father is an oligarch. The story moves on. They spend time together. They take a trip to Las Vegas where they impulsively get married. And that's the end of Act 1. I really respect this from what it isn't. I think in worse hands, this film would be then gangsters come along and, his family aren't happy about him marrying someone, and they do send people round, but doesn't turn into Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. It doesn't turn into gunplay or anything like that. It turns into people just trying to fix this situation, and a young boy who is in above his head and is with the fear of his parents. It's got an independent, strong woman who sees that why should these people tell her what she can and can't do? And the parents who are looking at this situation going, what the fuck do we do next? this is at times it's hilarious. At times it is really frustrating because it turns into a bit of a madcap caper. It turns into, there's the Pretty Woman thing at the beginning. There's the Cinderella thing. At points, it's a bit like a Coen Brothers film where they're trying to work out what's happening, and there's people in rooms talking and trying to understand exactly where they need to go to find someone to do the next thing. And then the ending of this is absolutely heartbreaking. And one of the most emotional depictions I've seen on screen. Mikey Madsen, I came out there going, well, she's never going to get it, but give her the Oscar right now.
Mm-hmm.
She is now favourite for the Oscar.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people talk about Honora. It seems to have, after you spoke about it on the pod, I then started to realise that it was in lots of people's lists and it was getting a lot of buzz. So yeah.
Have you got any intention of seeing it?
It just doesn't sound like, but when you say Coen Brothers and things like that, it just doesn't.
But that's just
tickle my brain.
One section of the film.
And they have to in order to get ready for the Oscars.
I think you would really enjoy this.
Okay.
I mean, I'm going to butcher some Russian names now. Mark Edyelstian, who plays Ivan, who's the young boy, plays it perfectly as kind of an annoying rich brat. The star of this, outside of Mikey Madsen, is Yura Borisov, who plays Igor, who's one of the people who is helping find and resolve this situation. I've never seen him before. I don't think he's been in many English language films, but an absolutely star-making performance from him. He is the emotions that where he knows he has a job, but needs to make sure that this is done right. And I'm trying to save what happens later in the film. Is brilliantly done. Some really, really funny moments in this as well. Like there's points where it's funny, but points where it's absolutely horrific. You go through every single emotion on this, and again, in another year, this would absolutely be my number one. I mean, if another year's Zone of Interest could be number one, then the film that's above it definitely could be. But yeah, absolutely love this film, and I really think you will enjoy it.
Okay.
What's your number two?
My number two is Monkey Man.
Wow, okay.
Dev Patel's directorial debut, and I think in another year it would be my number one.
Okay, it's not on my list.
Yep.
But I mean, it's a film that I really enjoyed, as we covered on the podcast.
It's fab. It's on Sky Cinema now, and I've been going around shouting about it on social media, saying, "Go and get it, go and watch it." It's very John Wickian. It's crime caper. It's Dev Patel essentially working his way through lots of baddies, revenge drama. But the bit that stays with me, that you sort of get partway into, you get partway through, you get into the middle, and there's a trans storyline that comes a little bit out of nowhere actually, and he ends up at a temple and staying with different people, and there's almost like a pause in the film, and I just thought it was just beautiful. I really thought it was tenderly done. It was sensitively done. It gave us time to breathe, but it also brought this other element to the film. A film that talks about the underdog. A film that talks about class and minorities and minority rights. It talks about political issues and corruption. And I just thought that's the bit that when I'm thinking about scenes that I remember. It's not necessarily the action that I'm thinking of. I'm thinking about Dev Patel's character, learning lessons and being with the characters in the temple, and I just thought it was really beautiful. It's like, and the music and the use of music as well, absolutely gorgeous. I think it's so much more. I've sort of gone, oh, it's John Wickian. It's so much more than that. It has so many different levels to it, and I can't wait to see again what he does next. I think he's not only has he cracked the action, I think he has the storytelling as well, and on so many different levels. You know?
Yeah. It's not a film that has stayed with me. It's not a film I've really thought about outside of, oh yeah, Monkey Man was this year. But no, it's a hell of a piece of work, and it's I really enjoyed it, and yeah, I think it was, if I was to judge it on something, I think it's somewhat derivative of those revenge action thrillers, which I understand works for you.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it, but I haven't thought about it since the day probably since the last second that we did our thing, until I saw it come on Sky recently.
Isn't it interesting? Because I think if we were going down gender lines, it would be posited as a bloke's film because of the action and the violence. So, you know, traditionally that's what you would get. You would say, oh, men would love this. And as a woman, I found so much that spoke to me.
Yeah.
Interesting. What's your number 2?
My number 2, I suspect, is your number 1. So while I need to take a pause right now, I need to take a pause, and then you immediately go into it. My number 2 film, unless you've forgotten about it, is All of Us Strangers.
It's my number 1.
Okay. For a long time, this was my number 1.
Yeah. It hasn't moved.
Yeah. No, and the reason. So I'll tell you that the reason that it's not my number 1 is probably just recency bias. But I went and listened back to our review of this film earlier today, and I was like, yeah, okay, I maybe it should be my number 1. But because I was just like laying the plaudits on this. But as the years gone on, it's kind of slipped back in my mind.
It came out very early.
It's
it was
one
January.
that I knew was kind of my favorite film of the year, because I remember like just singing its praises on the podcast. But it's not something that I've necessarily thought about monthly since. So should we talk about what this film is?
Yeah.
This is the film of directed by Andrew Hay, who did Weekend, which I've seen a long time ago, and 45. Do you remember when we both went to see 45?
Yeah, we went to see it. Did we see it separately?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
And that was about a couple who had been together for a long time, funny enough, 45 years, and a fracture in their relationship. It was really interesting two-hander.
Yeah.
You paused there, and I was like, have I got it wrong?
No.
Really interesting two-hander and relationship, very much people and relationships and how the world works.
Yeah. Well, it very much like that. Andrew Scott moves into a new apartment block. He meets another resident, Paul Mescal, and they start a relationship. He's writing a book, and I think we left it there during our review. I think probably best if we do it there again. Although there is a big conceit in this that if you look anywhere on the internet, you'll probably find. Yeah,
I mean, it's all about your history. He's writing a book. He goes back to his parents' home, you know, and he's thinking about childhood, and he's thinking about his parents. And I think there's a lot about loneliness in this film as well. You know, the apartment block, the new apartment block. Paul Mescal's character, you know, knocking on his door, essentially saying, you know, do you want some company? You know, do you need a friend? And you know, all of that sort of thing, because they're alone in this, or seemingly alone in this block. I think there's a lot about friendship and relationships and loneliness, and you know, the huge theme running through it is, you know, being a gay man, and Andrew Scott's character essentially not almost like putting himself away, you know, and not going out there and looking for relationships or looking for partnership or looking for comfort or closeness and intimacy, and the arrival of Paul Mescal's character into his life and sort of forcing him to face those things. There's so much going through it. You know, there's nostalgia, there's family relationships, there's homophobia, there's there's so much, isn't there? There's loneliness, friendship running through it, and I think that's the dialogue is superb, the acting is superb. I think it stays. There's a feeling to it. There's almost a hum throughout the whole film. You just feel this resonance all the time, and that is before you even get into these devices. You know, it you could call it sci-fi. You could call it, horror. It has so much genre
Yes.
in it as well. At the heart of it, it's all about relationships and people.
And what a soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
The Power of Love by Frankie Goes Hollywood, Johnny Come Home by Fanny and Cannibals, and the best song you never ever hear, Build by the House Martins.
Yes, fabulous song.
And also played off a vinyl on, I believe now that's what I call music 12, I think, in the film. Yeah, such a good film, such brilliant performances. It's now on Disney Plus. If you haven't seen this, certainly in the UK anyway, if you haven't seen this, I would it's only about an hour and 40 or something like that. Just treat yourself. It is such a good film.
Can I guess at your number one? Is your number one, given that you've talked about recency bias, is your number one Better Man?
Well, Elaine.
Tonight, Matthew, I'm
loving Angels instead. No, it's not. It's not.
It's not. I was like, wow, are you going to come in with that?
But the film that is defying gravity on my list is not Wicked.
I was like, it's not going to be Wicked.
My number one, I'm going to put the white smoke up now, is Conclave.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Directed by Edward Berger, who did the recent remake of All Quiet on the Western Front. This is the story of the Pope is dead. They need to appoint a new Pope, as told through the lens of an old-fashioned political thriller.
Amazing.
Very little interest in the Catholic Church, but I think there's a lot that you can be interested in around the grandeur and the spectacle
and
of the appointment of
appointment
of a new Pope. And what you have around this is the thing that you got in that thing with Jude Law, which I think was called The New Pope or The Young Pope,
Young
which
Pope.
I think there's 2 series.
Yeah.
In that you have the very old traditions of this, but you've also got loads of popes sitting on a minivan and a minibus because they've got to be sequestered and texting away on iPhones and vaping because it's modern life.
Yeah.
This is so well told. You have to learn, like with It's What's Inside, you have to learn so many characters and learn their relationships and learn their allegiances
and where they're from and their countries
where they're
of
from
origin.
and why they are. We've got a left-wing pope, we've got a right-wing pope, we've got a pope who's very pro things, pro women's rights and things like that, and he would be the first black pope, but he's not up on homosexuals. So is he a compromise? Is he would you put it back? This is taken from a book, and I don't think I've got the person who wrote it.
Is it Robert
down
Harris?
Here. Yeah, yes, that's it. Yes.
I think I know more about this film than
You
I
do.
should.
You might do. But this is amazingly well told. I was sat there just watching it go through. It stars Ralph Fiennes, who is whatever the foreman of the process is. So he's the one who's leading the process and making sure that everyone's getting the votes in and things like that. I assumed that there was some kind of, if there was a vote and they didn't find the majority needed to get a pope, that there would be some debate and stuff like that. But according to this film, they just go off and it's up to you to kind of sort it out amongst yourselves in darkened corridors.
Lock them in.
Yeah. But I thought there would be some formal debate or anything like that. No. So this is darkened corridors. There are scenes that take place much like in things like House of Cards, in stairwells and in hotel rooms behind. You see people walking down hotel rooms that shouldn't necessarily be there, walking down corridors. I was fascinated, and I absolutely was there for the acting. The acting is phenomenal. Of course, Ralph Fiennes is brilliant. Of course, Stanley Tucci.
Just to let you know. Every time you said Ralph, I'm like,
of course, Voldemort's fine.
He won't like it if you don't call him Rafe.
Of course, Stanley Tucci's brilliant. Of course, John Lithgow's brilliant.
John Lithgow's in it.
John Lithgow's in it, yeah.
My love from Bigfoot and the Hendersons.
He does not have to tell a Yeti to go back that they don't want him.
Not a Yeti, he's a Bigfoot.
It's the same thing.
It's not.
Of course, Isabella Rossellini's brilliant. Lucian Masmati, who's that's probably a name that I've butchered there, but I know him from See How They Run, is excellent in this and really, really plays the part well. But I'm going to spend a moment just talk about Carlos Diaz, who is a mystery cardinal that's been appointed by the Pope in secret.
Is he Cardinal Richelieu?
No,
From
but I
Three
really,
Musketeers?
every time they come along in red, I just think of Cardinal Richelieu
Cardinal
from...
Wolsey from the Tudor period. Sorry, carry on.
You go for the Tudor period,
Yeah.
I'll go for Dogtanian and the
Yeah.
Musker Hound. So Carlos Diaz is put in this as this mystery pope that's come in and no one knows about him. No one knows he's been anointed as cardinal, but the Pope has gone out of his way to make sure this is the case. I looked him up. This is his screen debut.
Okay.
He took up online acting workshops through COVID
Wow.
and is now in a film
That's
with
amazing.
Ray Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow.
Yeah.
I mean, God,
As a mystery cardinal.
just could you give me 6 numbers? Because I'm going
Yeah,
to put them
yeah.
on. Like, what a
Amazing.
thing. You would love this film.
I would love it.
I know that you would absolutely
Yes.
love this film.
Yeah,
It is.
it's totally
I
up
saw
my street.
this the week after the American election, and it was so prescient in the. Okay, so we don't really want to vote for them, but if we don't vote for them, then we get for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is. I thought I had this film worked out, and then it just so many times just went on a 90 degrees and just absolutely swept the rug out from under me. And to the end, one of the most touching endings to a film I've ever seen. This is brilliant, and if it's still on in the cinemas, I think you'll probably be able to catch it, and I think it's probably going to come back because it's being discussed for Oscars.
Yes, and it's very popular as well because I went to have a look at one of our independent cinemas to go and see it, and it was. I couldn't go and sit in that screening because there was so many, you know me. There were just so many people. I have to have like
4
space
people were
around
in
me.
there.
No, it wasn't. I was expecting there to be 4 people, but it wasn't. It was just packed. So yeah, I'll have to wait until people are back at work, and I can go in the middle of the day where I get a bit of quiet around me. But yeah, and it just shows to your point that people are still going and maybe going twice, you know, and that there's buzz around it.
This was a film that was so good that I immediately text my mum and said,
Yes,
you should go see this. 'Cause I think she'd really, really enjoy it.
Fab. I think it's interesting that there's been so few films that have been on both of our lists where we've had that usually when we're doing this we go, oh, I'll come back to that, and then a couple more films will go, and then we'll come back to that, but this has been one of our longest top 10s of the year because we've been going through each of our lists essentially. So yeah, I find that really interesting that we've had such a diversity on our lists.
I think it's just that you've not been to see any of the good films that I've recommended you to see.
That's true. Maybe I have seen. I'm sure like Conclave and others would have been on there as well.
Yeah.
Right, let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up because you've got to edit this bugger.
I've got to edit it, and also the darts are on.
Yes.
Very important. I need to go and watch some darts.
I think if you watch every single or listen to every single top 10 of the year that we've done, we've mentioned the darts in it at some
Do you
point.
think so?
Yeah.
Oh,
almost
great.
certainly. At least once a year out one of the two.
I'm glad I'm consistent. Well, thank you everyone. Let us know what you think of our lists. And we'll be back with our top 10 TV shows of the year.
Couple of days.
In a couple of days, I reckon. Yeah.
See you later.
Bye.